Welcome to Supreme Science Grenade Launcher. Today we will be talking about Ben 10, the timeline. I think that Race Against Time takes place after Goodbye and Good Riddance, as none of their events, to my knowledge currently, deny the other one. They announce that say no, we cannot come after each other. So to me, Race Against Time seems to have come after Goodbye and Good Riddance. The only thing that destroys that is that Ben's parents still do not know about his heroics. So that can put a damper in that conclusion, but you can always say they didn't want to take, but still maybe it comes a week somewhere before that. But it and Goodbye and Good Riddance don't seem to have enough things that contradict each other to be in different timelines that much to be able to say, but they can't be in different. But for this theory, I will say that they're in the same timeline to make it easier. Let's continue. And then I think they were canon, and then when Ben was sent to the future to see Ben 10,000, that changed outcomes of events in both the future and the past. In the past, changing some historical things, so making differences in things, making some things uncanon for differences being caused by being sent to the future, being sent to a new timeline, changing the events in the future and the past. Because when was it to the future when he was sent to the future in Classic, it changed some knowing. No, so now he just knew what to do to change that, to change the future. Because he was in a new timeline, it also changed the past, so leading that in one timeline A happened, and then it went to BA, the first BA, but then in another timeline A didn't happen, C happened, leading to D, changing the timeline from the past to the future. So in some timelines, by the events of Ben being taken to the future in Classic, that event changed the future and the past, as they were not in the same timeline they began with. So then that changes the outcome of some events, and then that can affect what happens in the past and the future. So then that's why there are some small differences between the Goodbye and Good Riddance and also Race Against Time, and also the Prime Timeline. To explain why I still think that Race Against Time should be kept with Riddance, they seem to have a little bit of the same plot. So I will say we can classify it as one timeline to simplify, and we'll call it Against Time timeline, and the Prime Timeline already has a name. So for part 2, I will speak about the differences. Like, share and subscribe, and come again to watch another video of Supreme Science Grenade Launcher. Supreme Science Grenade Launcher. Welcome to Supreme Science Grenade Launcher. Today is part 2. The first difference, the plumber symbol in Race Against Time is detailed, but in the Prime Timeline it is a red circle and an omnitric symbol at times. Second, in Race Against Time, Eon is not an other Ben, but in the Prime Timeline he is. Plumbers in Race Against Time, the plumbers were formed when they captured Eon 2 centuries ago by the original plumbers in 1727. 7 as I think happened. But in the prime timeline, Vilgax arrived on Earth, inspiring George Washington to start the prime plumbers in Goodbye and Good Riddance. Ben's parents learned that Ben was a superhero, but in the main timeline, they did not learn about that until Alien Force. Now, Race Against Time and Goodbye and Good Riddance have differences too. Here in my explanation, and the explanation will explain how they were in the canon timeline. When Ben was sent to see Ben 10,000, it changed the timeline. Like this Ben 10 returning back, it changed the canon timeline, splitting it into 3.5. The first is the prime timeline. The 2.5 is the Race Against Time and Alien Swarm timeline. Timelines there. Alien Swarm and Race Against Time, they in one timeline halfway. The differences divide into half. It divides into half because they can take place in one timeline, but they also can't take place in 1.5 timelines. I think they take place in 1.5 timelines. That timeline is the Goodbye and Good Riddance timeline. So the canon timeline led to the classic Ben 10,000. How he saw events going from the Ben 10 show we watched, then Race Against Time happening, then 1 week after Race Against Time to him went Goodbye and Good Riddance, and then Alien Force. That to him. No, then he did in Alien Force, but then he didn't get to remove his Omnitrix and lasted all the way until we saw him when Ben was sent to the future. That's how the canon timeline went. The Ben we see was always in the prime timeline because when Gwendolyn took Ben to see the future, changing the past and the future by splitting the timeline into 3, so it always was split when we saw it. That explains some of the small differences between all the continuities. That explains the differences of the parents and the plumbers, and sometimes having similar things. Comment the similar things, like, share and subscribe. Come again to see another video of Supreme Science Grenade Launcher. Supreme Grenade Launcher.